Hello everyone, this is Pilpoh and welcome to my AllTheMods 9 tips and tricks guide. I just want to address the fact that I've already done one of these for AllTheMods 9. However, the pack has been updated a ridiculous amount since then, and a lot of the tips and tricks guides that are currently out for AllTheMods 9 are completely out of date. So this should address a bunch of those issues. So this is the new AllTheMods 9 tips and tricks guide. Now, firstly, I just want to point out that I'm doing all of these tips and tricks in AllTheMods 9 No Thrills, which is a cut down version of AllTheMods 9. It's got basically all the same mods, except it's removed a few of the really heavy hitter mods. So that is my tip number one. If you've got a potato PC like I do, then install AllTheMods 9 No Frills instead of AllTheMods 9. If you don't like GregTech, No Frills is for you as well, because it doesn't have GregTech in it. For my next tip, I just want to point out that Ultimine is in the pack, and you can use it without any tools whatsoever. So right now we don't have any tools on us at all, and I'm pressing my Ultimine key down, and it's going to chop down this entire tree. You can do this from the beginning of the game, so it's super useful. You can go around, chop down an absolute ton of trees, get loads of wood. So the Ultimine button is usually the button to the left of the 1 key, and then it does this little highlight, and if you press shift whilst you're pressing that button and then you scroll, you can change the different modes. So there's one that does like a small tunnel, which means it does 64 blocks of whatever you're looking at in like a tunnel like that, which is pretty good. Ultimine will only ever mine up 64 blocks. So it's useful to see as well. If we do this one, you see that? It only did the dirt and not the grass. So you got to be mindful of that. But whilst you're mining, it's actually pretty useful because, well, you don't want to accidentally mine like an absolute ton of stone when you're trying to mine up some coal. So just to go over the different types of Ultimine that you have available to you, there's Shapeless, which does any of the blocks around you in a 64 blocks, anything that's connected to whatever you're looking at. So all the dirt that I'm looking at right now will be mined up, but only 64 of them will be mined up. There's Small Tunnel, we just talked about. There's 3x3, which I think we just talked about as well. We just used it here. There's Large Tunnel, which is the same as Small Tunnel, but in a 3x3. So we can do that right here. And it will mine all of those right there, up to 64. There's Mining Tunnel, which is really useful to begin with because you can do this and it will mine down. If you had a pickaxe, in fact I do have my Paxel on me so I can show you, and there you go, you've got a little mining tunnel and you can just walk down it like this. Really useful. Next up we've got Escape Tunnel, which is the opposite of the mining tunnel. So if you're coming back up from below, you can use the escape tunnel. And then we're back to Shapeless. All really useful. And as a bonus tip, what I will say is you can change the keybind for this. All you need to do is go to Options, Controls, Keybinds, type in Ultimine, and as you can see here, I've rebound mine to F. I don't know about you, but I never use my swap to offhand. So that's where, you know, you've got something in your offhand and you're swapping out whatever's in your main hand to your offhand. I've never used that functionality. I don't know if anyone else has used it, but if they have, please let me know what you do with it. So my next tip is all about transportation, and for transportation in the early game, the best thing to do is get yourself a jetpack. I've got a creative jetpack right here because you can make that with the ATM Star. So, but what I would suggest is when you make a jetpack, you also make wireless power, and you make some of these free runners from Mechanism. They're relatively easy to make. You just need to get into Mechanism a smidge, and then you can get yourself some free runners. You charge these up and they give you no fall damage whatsoever. They also give you step assist, which is quite useful. So one of the ways that I suggest you get wireless power, so you can power your jetpack and your free runners without having to come back and put them in like one of these cubes over here to recharge them up. One of the ways I suggest doing it is the Flux Networks Flux Controller. So you actually need to make one of these controllers, which is kind of a pain, and this is the recipe. Each one of these flux blocks that you see right here is actually an Eye of Ender. So You got to bear that in mind, that you actually need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you also need 1 for this core. You need 6 Eyes of Ender. So I wouldn't say it's like uber early game, but it's early game enough that once you've got 6 Eyes of Ender, you can get infinite flight if you've got power going into your flux networks. I'm not going to cover that in this video. In my All the Mods 9 No Thrills series and in my All the Mods 9 series, I cover that in like extensive detail. There's also Powah. Powah has a player transmitter that can also power your inventory and your curios and your like main slots and everything. So this can either go on your chest plate or you can put it on your body as a curios right there. So for early game power, I highly recommend that you get yourself some of these wind generators from Mechanism Generators. As you can see, the recipe for it is not that bad. It's about the same as getting some free runners. And each one of these, depending on how far up they are, will produce a decent amount of power. I think it's the best early game power you can get. That is until you get into Powah, which is the next mod that we're going to talk about. Once you've graduated from the windmills, by the way, I would put the windmills really high up in the air, stick a flux plug on it, and you get the most out of it. But once you've graduated from the windmills, I would highly recommend getting into the reactors from Powah. There are other mag meters and things like that, which will generate you quite a bit of power to begin with, but it does require you to go get some soul lava and stuff like that. If you're not interested in going to the other until later on, where you can't fly, by the way, then yeah, just bear this in mind, that reactors are really easy to set up, really easy to automate. And the way that you can automate it, you can do this with Applied Energistics or Refined Storage. In this case, I'm going to show you Refined Storage. In fact, I'm going to go get all of the bits for Applied Energistics as well, and I'll put it on this side. Right, there we go. So for a Applied Energistics setup, all you need is an export bus, an ME export bus. You will need a crafting card. You'll need a block of coal, block of redstone, dry ice, and uraninite. So you don't need the dry ice to begin with, you can just use ice. So you can set up some sort of setup to get yourself ice. There's a few out there. I use this one right here from Thermal Expansion, which is the Blast Chiller. You put water into it, you get some ice out. And then uraninite comes from the raw uraninite that you find out in the wild. Another way is if you've got uranium, you can turn it into uraninite just by using the Energizer. We're not going to go over that right now, but it's worth mentioning, I think. The same thing is for the exporter from Refined Storage. You are going to need a crafting card. A few of these things might need to be crafted up. For example, if you've got a recipe for block of redstone, instead of having it in a drawer, then yeah, you might want to craft it up and send it into the reactor. Now I'm going to pop this in here, which is the uraninite. I'm going to do this manually. There is a point on this side called auto mode, and what the auto mode does is when it gets full, it will just stop. It won't burn any of the other bits that it's got in here, so it won't burn any more uraninite, won't burn any more coal, any of these things here, it won't actually burn them. When all the power goes below 70%, it will then kick it back on and start burning materials again, which is really, really useful. So that is one way of getting mid-game power, I'd say. The next power option is from Industrial Foregoing. Now, unfortunately, I ripped down all of my mycelial reactor sort of setup that I had. That was in this room here. But if you want to see that, I have a video on it already, which I will link in the description. This, by the way, gets you 25 million FE per tick. So it's a very decent, even late game option. For the complete late game, though, you are going to want to get yourself a creative energy cell. And to get that, you need an ATM Star, which might not be something that you're willing to get. So I'd suggest going for the mycelial reactor. In All the Mods 9, there is a new quest section, which has got tips and tricks. And this is really good to show you where a few things have changed from All the Mods 8. So a lot of these tips are from my All the Mods 8 tips and tricks that I did. So it's quite useful that they're in this sort of format here with all the changes listed. So in this case, we're going to talk about Apotheosis. Now, in previous versions, the chorus fruit was the thing that would remove AI from spawners. You could right click a chorus fruit on a spawner and it would just remove all the AI. So for example, if you had a blaze spawner, the blaze would spawn in with no AI whatsoever, so they wouldn't attack you. So that's really useful to know, right? The next thing is ignore players. All that means is the spawners will spawn if it's loaded. So if you're really far away from it, normally spawners just don't work. But what in this situation, a conduit will do is it will just make it so they're always spawning. So you can have them sat in your base. You could be off exploring somewhere, many chunks away, and the spawner will still be spawning stuff. If you've got a automated setup for killing those things that come out of the spawner, really useful, so you can collect loads and loads of resources. Increased entities is the next one on the list. Gas tiers, you can now only spawn in 16 things at a time. I know I said only, but that's quite a lot. If you own a server, this is definitely a must. So quite happy that this was changed, if I'm honest. There is the decrease, the minimum spawn delay and maximum spawn delay. They've been changed from sugar and clocks to AllTheModium ingots and Unobtainium ingots. And also the minimum has been changed and the minimum has been changed, if you know what I mean. Yeah. So it used to be 20 and it's gone down to 100. Now I'm going to show you a quick trick, which is there's actually some spawners around in this dungeon right here. Now to get here you need one of these Wayward Compasses. This is from the Iron Spells and Spellbooks mod. What this does is it points you in the direction of the dead king. And I think the dead king is in this direction. Yeah, he's just there. I have put myself in peaceful just to show you this. But one of the good things is these spawners right here, if you were to silk touch them, I have a silk touch pickaxe right here. I'm going to come down here and I'm going to silk touch this. You can pick up all of these Invoker Fang spawners, and if you press shift on them, it tells you their stats. And as you can see, the minimum spawn delay is set to 0 and the maximum spawn delay set to 20. So that is super useful because they are the quickest spawners in the game. You can also use any egg that you have, any spawn egg. So I actually have a few in my system. So for example, I've got a Enderman spawn egg right here. If I place this down and then right click it on there, it will try to spawn some Enderman. Now I can't actually do that because I'm in peaceful, but still, that is super useful for early game because it means you can get loads of ender pearls. Now, just with 2 bits of wool and a stick, you can get yourself a mob swab. And what you can do with this is if you go over to a creature and you right click on them, you can get yourself a mob swab with their DNA on it. So you can see right there, it says cow DNA. By making a singularity tank and getting 2 more Eyes of Ender, you can get yourself a XP drain. And if we plonk this down, when you stand on the XP drain, it will pull out some XP for you into Fluid XP. Use a bucket to pull that Fluid XP into a bucket. That's from Mob Grinding Utils. Use the swab and some seeds, and you get yourself GM Chicken Feed. Now I've got a spawner that spawns chickens, and what you can do is you can right click on a chicken with your GM Chicken Feed, and you get yourself a spawn egg of whatever you swabbed. I will just say this doesn't work for like boss mobs like the Wither. But it does work with the Cataclysm mobs. I've got Igneous right here in one of these spawners. And there you go. He spawned in and then he got instantly mob crushed. I think I can turn this off. And you can see it. There they are. I'm going to turn that back on to get rid of them. Except that dude. I did say earlier that the conduit makes it so you can just leave the spawner alone if you right click it on there. And a good place to get them, actually pretty much the only place to get them, is the Deepling Brutes. There's another way to get them using Mystical Agriculture. So if you were to get Squid Essence, the Prismarine Essence and the Diamond Essence, and with the Prismarine Essence and Fish Essence you can make Nautilus Shells, you can combine those together to get Heart of the Seas that way. This way is also a viable option. You can set up a spawner for these guys, and then they will get you Heart of the Seas, which will then, in turn, get you conduits, which then you can use to, like, automate them, if you know what I mean. Another good thing is they actually make Nautilus Shells as well. So, yeah, they will drop both Heart of the Seas and Nautilus Shells. For automated killing, highly recommend you look up the Mob Masher right here. You can add a looting upgrade, which it does take any version of looting book that you can get, but you can break those down relatively easily. I've got one of these glass swords which has got 3 enchantments on there that I want to take off. Now, a few people have mentioned that you can drop an anvil, and that didn't work right there. You can do it on Crying Obsidian. That would work in the main game of AllTheMods 9. This doesn't work in No Thrills, because the mod that adds it is not in this. But there's loads of easy ways to do it. There's a way using Evilcraft, which I actually have a video on, so I'll link that up in the top left corner right now. There's a way that I've been doing it, which is by using the enchantment extractor right here. You feed it books, you feed it something with an enchantment, and it will take those enchantments off. There's many ways to do it, but I highly recommend getting a enchantment library or the Library of Alexandria if you are that way inclined. And what this does is, if you have a exporter or export bus with the either exact mode off or a fuzzy card, you can just send any book that's an enchanted book straight into this, and it will basically store all of your enchantments for you without clogging up your system. So if I have a look in here, I don't have any enchanted books in my system. They all go into this library, and I can pick out any of these. This is a tip I always try and include ever since I first included it in my AllTheMods 8 playthrough, and that is that Osmium is actually better than Netherite. So if we have a look here, Netherite is 3 armor, 3 armor toughness, and plus 10% in knockback resistance. And the Osmium helmet is 4 armor, 3 armor toughness, and plus 10% in knockback resistance as well. So the helmet is actually better than Netherite. Osmium chestplate is the exact same, except it's got less durability by like barely any. Osmium leggings, again, exact same, except less durability by like a little tiny bit. And the same with the boots. It's funny because I always described it as being better than diamond, but we all know now that it's actually better than Netherite. My next tip is about storage. So we've got a controller right here, which is connected to all of these drawers that you see on my walls right here, and the ones back there as well. Now, with functional storage, you don't actually have to have them touching the storage controller. All you have to do is have a linking tool. And in this storage controller, if I shift right click, you can see I've got a bunch of upgrades in there. And what that does is it increases the range. So I think it comes all the way out to like out here somewhere. Using the linking tool, which is the diamond one, by the way, it's the one that uses a diamond. You can right click on this and then right click on any of the different drawers that you have right here. If for some reason it's not linking a drawer, it's either outside or you've accidentally looked at a block that you can't actually click on and you've changed it to swap action to remove. And that way when you're clicking on it, it's like, I'm trying to remove it, but I can't. So what you want to do there is just right click in the air again, swaps to add, and then you can add it back in. Now, a cool storage tip for this is you can actually use an external storage or a storage bus if you're using Applied Energistics. And what this will do is it will set, so for example, let's have a look at this, I don't know, Uranite right there. Uraninite, there it is. There's 83 right there. You can see 83 vaguely in the background there. If I was to take some out, you see it went down to 19, went down to 19. Put it back in, and it goes into there. You are going to have to mess with your priorities. So there's a priority system in both Applied Energistics and in Refined Storage. So make sure you set your priority to like really, really high, so it always goes to your drawers first. And that way you don't fill up your disks. Moving over to Eternal Day and Eternal Sunny. So there is a ritual from Ars Nouveau which actually turns the night into day. So that's one way to do it. You can automate it like this. I have a few shorts on this if you are interested. And the other one is if you want it to be always sunny and never raining, then you can automate Teru Bozu from Botania. And all that requires is that you right click a sunflower onto Teru Bozu. Another tip is to use modular routers everywhere because they are amazing. Now, if you are fed up of walking past one of your mob farms and accidentally picking everything up into your inventory because of your magnet, then make sure you make one of these Demagnatization coils. These are amazing because it means whenever anything is dropped within the area, and it does have a nice little like GUID to show you what the area is, it will just stop you from picking it up with your magnet. You can still pick it up if you want to. You can walk over to it, be really close to it and pick it up. as normal. It will just stop your magnet from working on items within this area. My next tip is about the solar neutron activators, which is this thing right here. Now, what these do is it turns nuclear waste, which I'm actually getting from this right here, the fission reactor, and it turns it into polonium. It does need sun though, it needs sunshine to turn that nuclear waste into polonium. If you're playing AllTheMods 9, not the No Thrills version, then there is a dimension called the Everbright, and it is from the Blue Skies mod. The Everbright is an always day and no weather dimension. Blue Skies is not in No Thrills, so you can't put all of your solar neutron activators in the Everbright. If you are in the base version of AllTheMods 9, then I highly recommend you go set up a base there with a waystone or something like that, something where you can get there really quickly. Just set up a base there and make sure you have access to the sun for the solar neutron activators. You can put glass above them so you can actually box yourself in. And then any nuclear waste that gets fed to the solar neutron activators will be turned straight into polonium, which you can then put into your SPS, which is what this thing is here. This turns polonium into antimatter, and you need antimatter for the ATM Star if you're going for the ATM Star. So yeah, very worth doing. If you are playing No Thrills, then I highly recommend setting up both the Always Day and Always Sunny, which again, I've got a short on if you want to see. As of the time of recording this, the wasted radioactive combs, which come from wasted radioactive bees, have been nerfed significantly. They now produce 10 times less nuclear waste than they used to. They used to have a bucket of nuclear waste with every one of these, but now it's 10 times less. So they're not as good as they used to be. They're still decent if you want to go that route, but I highly recommend making a big old reactor if you can. For late game, I highly recommend getting a angel ring, which will allow you to fly. Now, however, it will not allow you to fly in the Twilight Forest or the other dimension. So because you can't fly in here, you can see there it says flight is disabled in this area. This is the way I've been doing it. There's many ways to do this apparently, but the way I've been doing it is if you get yourself a Staff of Travelling, which is kind of a pain in the bum to get from Ender.io. You need a Vibrant Crystal, you need a Soul Vial filled with an Enderman. So you need to right click an Enderman with a Soul Vial. Just go through all of that process. You get yourself a Staff of Travelling. Now with this, if you shift and then you right click, it will send you flying. Now, you can actually shift and right click and keep doing it until you're really, really high up, and then you can just basically teleport yourself around, and it is just like flying. This is what I used in my No Thrills Let's Play, and I used it quite a lot to be fair. So we can fly up here if we wanted. We can land. Let's land on this tree on the top. There we go. Yeah, really useful. It's a really decent way of getting around, to be fair, is just by using the Staff of Travelling. Another thing that's really good about the Staff of Travelling is, for instance, I'm walking on this glass right here, but I want to get in there. I can just shift, right click, and it gets you through. So it's good at just like getting around, basically. One of the better tips that I've heard is that you should subscribe to this channel. When you get slightly into the game, you can start reforging things with Apotheosis. So not only can you reforge your tools and your gear, you can reforge the mech suit, by the way. It's quite useful to know that. But you can also reforge a few things that you wouldn't think about. For instance, the jetpack that we had on earlier. This has been reforged, so this would give us plus 25% on cooldown reduction. That is for iron spells and spellbooks. Plus 8 armor. Plus 70 max mana for iron spells and spellbooks. Plus 10% in spell power and spell resistance from iron spells and spellbooks. Another one to think about is the backpack from Sophisticated Backpacks right here. And this one has got plus 1.5 luck on there, which is very useful. Just like an enchanting table, if you go to reforge something and you don't like what you get, so in this case, I don't want the speed, I don't want the ancient knowledge, I want to have more when it comes to sockets, then you can do that by replacing the pearls or whatever you're using and replacing it with the worst material you can, and then going for the worst thing that you can get on there, just like that. Now if you put this in with the Godforge Pearl, you'll see that that has changed. So mob drops will now teleport to me. It's got worse sockets though. I don't actually want to reforge this, but there you go. That's how you can change the outcome. Just like you can do with an enchanting table. So, if you get into Evilcraft just a little for the Vengeance Pickaxe, this is a really decent way to get Fortune 5. Now, when you first get it, you might think, it's got Curse of Vengeance. When you mine with it, a Vengeance Spirit might attack you and you might die from it, so it's kind of bad. But all you need to do is get one of these purifiers. And using a thing called a blood extractor, when you're killing mobs, you get their blood. And all you have to do is right click it onto the purifier, just like this, and it will put 3 buckets of blood in there. If you stick your Vengeance Pickaxe in, and then you pull that out right now, you can see that the Curse of Vengeance has disappeared with all 3 things of blood. If you add another thing of blood in there, and you right click that in with a Blook, just like that, you get yourself Vengeance Pickaxe with nothing on there, and a Fortune 5. And then you can apply this to whatever you want. If you're looking for AllTheModium, instead of going to a deep dark and looking around the walls and searching frantically along the walls to find a piece of AllTheModium, what you can do instead is you can kill the Warden once. There is a quest for this. So if we go to quests, go to bounty board, right at the bottom here, kill the Warden. Once you've killed the Warden, you get a piece of AllTheModium ingots. And you can use that ingot, turn it into AllTheModium nuggets. You can use the AllTheModium nuggets to make yourself a teleport pad and go to the mining dimension. When you spawn into the mining dimension, you'll be met with this site right here. Now, you are at Y level 253, and as you mine down, you'll find several different layers. So you'll start off with a dirt layer, and I've chunk destroyed this area so I can show you this. Then you go into a stone layer. After the stone layer, you will enter the deep slate area. After the deep slate area, you will be put into the netherrack area. I've actually mined all of this netherrack out using a builder. But before I did that, I turned it into dirt using the other builder. There's 2 types of builders. And that way I collected all of the netherrack, turned it into dirt, and then collected all of the dirt afterwards. And that way you can get your 5x netherrack and 5x dirt. It's just one way to do it for the ATM Star. After you've got past the netherrack layer, you will hit the end layer. And this has got all of the end ores that you'll find around the place. One of the best parts about this though is the fact that there are AllTheModium in this dimension right here. So you can come and mine this. You will also notice that none of this is mined because you can't auto mine AllTheModium, Unobtainium and Vibranium. It just can't be done. So you are going to have to go around and manually mine this stuff. But if you've got a decent level of fortune, then mining it should be pretty decent for you. There is a few ways to automate AllTheModium, Vibranium and Unobtainium. Now the first way is the lasers from Industrial Foregoing. So if you use a yellow laser lens and you set this up in a deep dark biome, which is where I am right now, you can see that if I look out there, you can see we're in our deep dark underneath our base. Looking at the laser base right here, we've got a yellow laser lens, and you can see that it is getting us a few different types of materials here, but mainly it's getting us AllTheModium, as you just saw. I have one more set up in a warp forest, and this one has a green laser lens, and this is getting us, there you go, some raw Vibranium. You might have just seen it. The last one is in the End Highlands, and this is to get us Unobtainium. Just like that. So there's 3 really good compasses in this pack, and that's the Wayward Compass, there's the Nature's Compass, and then there's the Structure Compass. The Wayward Compass, if you want to make a new one of these and not have it point at the same place, then you just have to go really far away and then make it. The Nature's Compass, if you were to right click this, you can pick a biome and it will tell you how far away that biome is from you, and it will basically point you in that direction. So if we do Archwood Forest, there's one in, I'll have to go into this view, there's one in that direction, about 461 blocks away. Really useful, especially if you're trying to find deep darks. So you can do deep dark, and then it tells us there's one like just over there, but it's obviously underground and everything, so yeah. And then the structure compass, if you right click on this, sorry, shift right click, you can set any of the structures in the game and it will take you there. So in this example, let's go for the Minecraft Desert Pyramid. So if I do that and then do a right click, it's going to give me a weight. And there is one, it's just 8,623 blocks away. So we could fly over to that if we wanted to, but I'm not going to. But it has this lovely like bound structure right in your screen right there, so you don't have to keep right clicking or anything. Out of all of these, I'd say that the Nature's Compass is probably the most MVP. It's actually one of the most MVP things in the pack. The last tip I'm going to give you is that to automate the ATM Star, you are going to need to have 2 blocks of ATM Stars. Sounds a bit counterintuitive, obviously, but the way you do that is by feeding an ATM Star block to a Patrick bee, and that turns them into one of these, a starry bee. And then the starry bee, when pollinated on another ATM Star block, so that's where the 2 come in, will produce, in this case, starry combs. We're getting these comb blocks just because we've got an upgrade in there. And those starry combs will produce ATM Star shards. And ATM Star shards, if put in this pattern right here, with a Patrick Star in the middle, will get you ATM Stars. I've got those happening right here, and it does happen over time, so you've got to bear with it. But there you go, that's how you automate the ATM Star. If you're interested in some videos on AllTheMods 9, then I do have 2 series. I've got one which is on the original AllTheMods 9, and for that series I managed to convert my single player save into a multiplayer, and we did play the final, I think, half of the series in multiplayer. I also started that series before the pack was even like finished. I wouldn't even say the pack is finished now because the ATM team is still updating the pack, which is amazing. The dedication on these guys is just insane. So big hats off to the ATM team. My second AllTheMods 9 pack was AllTheMods 9 No Frills, which is where this video is being recorded right now. So this is my AllTheMods 9 No Frills world. If you would like to get your hands on this world, poke around a little bit, I've done everything. I've got the ATM Star B. I've automated pretty much everything. Then there is a download link to this world in my Discord. All of my things on my Discord are completely free. So if you do want to join, you can even ask questions. We've got a No Frills server up and running as well right now. For that, you do need to join the Patreon. But other than that, you can still ask questions. And we've got some amazing people. If I don't get to it, then I'm sure somebody else will answer questions. So if you have any questions, please let me know. If you've got any more tips and you want to share that with the class, then please add them to the comments of this video so more people see it. Anyway, that's all I've got time for today. So thank you for watching. Thanks for joining. And I will see you in the next one. Bye.